Hello, this is Ken Ferrie with this week's Boots in the Field report. Getting a lot of reports coming in, some big rains across the state and the Midwest this past week. 3.5 inches here in Bloomington normal, and some reports up to 5 inches. Flash flooding in different places across the Midwest. These are the conditions that set up the different tar spot alleys. If you're finding tar spot on the bottom leaves and you're in one of these heavy rain event areas, be prepared for tar spot to take off. In the dry areas, it'll make slower progress, but it'll still make progress. This past week, as far as what tar spot we found it in Ford County, Kankakee County, and DeWitt County, to add to the ones that we've already seen. Tar spot on these fields is at the bottom leaves still at this time. A lot of corn pollinated last week, with a bunch more to pollinate this week. What I've been in, this week's pollination happened fast. We're pollinating butt to tip in 3 to 5 days or less. This bodes well for good long tip fill. With that said, we're seeing some pollination issues on certain hybrids planted in that April 14th to April 16th window right now. Looks like a situation of tight tassels when pollen was to drop. Silks were out and the pollen was dropping, but the tassel was wrapped by the upper leaves, not allowing the pollen to fall or be spread by the wind. Tight tassel wrap is usually related to some type of stress during rapid growth stage. It could be herbicide stress from this year's application or carryover from last year, or it could be from rootless corn that we struggled with there in a number of fields. That happened during the rapid growth stage, and it triggers a tight tassel that doesn't want to let the pollen drop. I've also seen tight rapid tassels from wide swings in temperatures during that rapid growth period. So again, swinging from low nighttime temperatures to very high daytime temperatures. Again, these fields were pushing silks, and as a plant pollinates, right, it pushes silks at the base of the ear, and then the middle, then the tip. Well, the base silks were pushing with no pollen reaching them. They continue to grow, waiting to be pollinated, but soon they get covered up by silks from the middle of the ear and the top of the ear. Once silks get covered up by other silks, it's harder to get them pollinated. Many of these fields have poor pollination at the base and up one side of the ear, which is next to the stalk. Many of these fields did get pollinated, but late. Or many of these kernels, I should say, did get pollinated, but late. So they're in the blister stage while the rest of that ear is in full milk. Now, while the blister kernels may be pollinated, they will not hold. They will get aborted. They're too far behind the rest of the ear. What we have noticed so far is most of the problem fields were planted between April 14th and the 16th. The hybrids in trouble have similar tassels. Tassels with the tall main spike that does most of the lifting with a few branches and somewhat larger or wider leaf areas. These hybrids tend to be heavy hitters on yield. The fact that these problem fields are showing up across a wide area leads me to believe it is environmental related. Now, to assess the potential loss in these fields, I recommend collecting 10 ears in a row in random spots in the field. Shuck them and lay them out on the tailgate and estimate what percent didn't pollinate or pollinated late, meaning blister kernels mixed with milk-filled kernels. If you're missing 20% of the kernels, you're probably missing 15% of the yield. The other kernels will adjust some when these blistered kernels abort. This may play into your decision, like whether or not you're going to pay for a second fungicide application. Is that yield punch still there? Now, this is one of the risks of having too many acres of the same maturity of corn planted in a tight window. You guys can plant a lot of corn in a small window. When we have pollination issues and you have too many acres at the same spot, you haven't mitigated risk. With this week's cloudy conditions and high humidity and fog, if this continues, it'll put pressure on what needs to pollinate this week as well as what pollinated last week. The corn that pollinated in fantastic time last week is susceptible to throw the tip off if we stay in these cloudy, poor ET days where we got cloud cover, high humidity. The shutdown of photosynthesis in this process can cause newly pollinated tips to abort. And they get kind of frustrating because you see them abort and there's no sign of stress on the plant. So if we continue with wet, foggy mornings like this morning, we're going to have trouble with what pollinated last week throwing the tip, and we're going to have trouble getting good pollination on the stuff that's pollinating this week. Pollen usually drops in the morning when the tassels dry off. If the tassels stay wet due to fog and heavy dew, and we can't get that 3 to 5 day pollination window like we had last week. So let's watch these fields all the way through. Let's make sure they get pollinated. The rootworm beetle this past week joined with the Japanese beetle to start the silk clipping process. So let's watch those corn-on-corn fields. If you see heavy beetle pressure in what was traded corn last year, it's a good indicator that your corn rootworm have come around your trait. Now we're getting calls from growers seeing northern rootworm beetle, the green beetle, in their rotated corn. These beetle are homegrown, and they're coming out of your field. We are early in the beetle emergence, which means beetles aren't moving yet from field to field. Now, the northern is capable of extended diapause, meaning a portion of those eggs laid in your cornfield 2 years ago didn't hatch until this year. This also means these beetles are resistant to whatever trait you used 2 years ago. Now is a good time to do your root digs and inspect for rootworm damage to the roots. Rootworm will take out the growing point or the tip of that root, or they'll cut a track along the side of that root as they feed. Now, all treated corn will have some damage because the rootworm must feed to receive the poison. Heavy damage with long tracks cut up the side of multiple roots, along with moderate beetle pressure in the field, are indicators the rootworm are coming around your trait. Be sure to change up your plan the next time you go to corn. Once corn pollinates, it seems like its resistance to disease drops off. Infections move faster. With high humidity, cool nights, these cornfields are staying wet for prolonged periods. You will see the disease pressure change fast, especially in the wet areas. Getting a number of pictures coming in with physoderm brown spot on the corn, people wondering if it is tar spot. It does look similar in some ways with the black spots. Physoderm brown spot would be the aftermath of the whorl holding water. It needs water standing in the whorl for this disease to get started. Physoderm will make your joints brittle, causing green snap later in the season, but is not as nasty as tar spot. Now this week, pulling whorls, looking for tassels, we saw winged aphids in DeWitt and Tazewell County. Winged aphids mean they're on the move, so pest teams be prepared. Let's not let them get ahead of us like they did in some places last year. The crew is starting their first round of virtual farm visits. If you haven't turned in your fields that you want virtual farm visits on, let's get that done. Our agronomist and or Janine will be contacting all of you who signed up for high-res program on your summer tested acres to set your zones, your yields by zone. We're looking forward to seeing everyone at our field day on the 16th. As usual, we'll be kicking off the day with our annual round-robin crop report at 8:15. This is where actual farmers from across the Midwest and Illinois tell us about their cropping conditions where their crop is, which many of you tell me that you use in part of your marketing strategy. We'll need to kick that off on time on Wednesday because we have a full house. It's going to be a big crowd. To stay on time the whole day, we want to kick that off. So if you want to catch that report, make sure you come early. Now, our field days are rain or shine events. We're prepared for whatever Mother Nature throws at us. We planted corn last week for the diagnostics breakout for the field day and the Farm Journal Corn Soybean College. We were hoping to catch rain last Sunday, but while Bloomington got 3.5 inches, just 15 miles north, we got 0. But the boys got the irrigation equipment set up and we watered up the diagnostics plot. So there's plenty of corn for you to dig in and to identify causes and problems. The Corn Soybean College campus is really looking good. We got a lot of things to show the college crowd. That's coming up fast, so don't forget to get registered. You can do that online at croptechconsulting.com or by phone. It's worth 13 CEUs for you that need CEU credits. We got a good group registered so far. We have people registered from 11 states and Canada. So we're stretching from Maryland to Oregon, from Canada to Texas. This is one of the great things about the Corn College crowd. You get to rub elbows with a lot of different farmers with different perspectives and farming practices. To stay up to date, check out our website at croptechinc.com and subscribe to our podcast, Boots in the Field Report. Keep her safe, keep her moving.